Have you ever been so focused on survival that you forgot how to live? Lucas Hartley, a billionaire CEO in Chicago, ran a company of hundreds but came home to silence every night. No family, no joy, just a calendar full of meetings and a heart that had forgotten how to feel. Then, one evening, his assistant collapsed in his arms from exhaustion. She had been quietly falling apart for months right under his nose. What do you do when the person you overlooked is the one who teaches you how to feel again? If it were you, would you keep chasing success or stop to save someone else's life? This is not just a story about business. It is about loneliness, choices, and the unexpected people who hold us together. So take a breath and come hear what happened when the coldest man in the city finally melted. The snow had been falling since before dawn. From the 58th floor of Keller and Price Capital, Chicago looked quiet, still, as if the whole city was holding its breath beneath a thick, white blanket. Only the soft hum of central heat and the low buzz of fluorescent lights filled the room. It was 8:43 p.m. Lucas Hartley sat alone in his corner office. The city's lights blinked through the large glass walls, but he was not looking out. He sat at his desk, flipping through financial reports without urgency. His fingers moved precisely. His eyes missed nothing. But there was no joy, no frustration, no feeling at all. He had reviewed these numbers before, 4 times. Nothing had changed. In the hallway, the sound of soft footsteps echoed briefly. Then came a quiet knock. Lucas did not look up. "Come in." The door opened gently. A woman stepped inside. She held a stack of neatly arranged folders and a yellow legal pad. "Here are the revised projections you asked for." "Mr. Hartley," she said. Her voice was steady, soft, but not timid. Lucas glanced up. Just a second, enough to recognize her. Olivia Bennett, his executive assistant, 27 years old, organized, unshakable, always on time. She placed the folders on the table near his desk, careful not to disturb the space. Then she stood, silently, waiting for him to speak, or to dismiss her. Lucas looked at her again. The light caught on her hair, chestnut brown, pulled back, as usual. Her coat was still on. Snowflakes clung to the edges. "You are still here," he said, flatly. "I had a few things to finish. It is past 8, I know. I just wanted to make sure the numbers were accurate for tomorrow's board review." Lucas paused. "Do not stay late if it is not essential." Olivia nodded once. "Understood." She turned to leave, then stopped. Her hand lingered on the doorknob, just for a moment, but she said nothing. She left quietly, pulling the door closed behind her. Lucas sat still for a while. He watched the door, then turned back to the reports. Outside, the snow kept falling. The elevator dinged softly at the far end of the hallway. Olivia stepped out and walked toward the assistant desk area. Most of the lights on the floor were off. Just the security lights remained, pale and flickering slightly. She walked slowly, shoulders tense from hours at the screen. Her boots squeaked on the marble tile. The silence felt thick, unfriendly. Her desk was still warm from her coffee cup. She sat down again. There were a few more charts she wanted to double-check. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but they trembled slightly. She stopped, looked at her hand, then at the blank wall in front of her. She let out a breath. It had been a long week. Then again, it had been a long year. At 9:22 p.m., she took out her phone. A message from her brother had arrived 2 hours ago. Mom thought today was Thanksgiving. She cooked potatoes and green beans at 6 a.m. Again, we are okay. Do not worry. Olivia stared at the screen. Her thumb hovered over the reply button. She typed, "Thanks, Ethan. I will be home soon," then deleted it. She had said that last night too, and the night before. She opened the top drawer of her desk and pulled out a small bottle of water. It was empty. She reached for the granola bar she kept for late nights. It was half crushed, but she opened it anyway. Beneath the desk, her legs ached. She had not stood up in hours. Lucas left his office at 9:47 p.m. He walked the hall quietly, hands in his coat pockets. As he passed the rows of cubicles, he noticed the faint glow of a monitor still on. He stopped. Olivia was still at her desk, head slightly bowed. Her fingers moved slowly across the keyboard. Her shoulders were drawn up, tired, stiff. He said nothing, just watched. For a moment, he wondered what she was thinking. Then he turned, walked toward the elevator, back at her desk. Olivia closed her laptop. She leaned back in her chair and stared at the ceiling tiles, each one the same, white, silent. She thought of her mother, alone in the small apartment across the city, a woman who had once been a piano teacher, now unable to remember if she had eaten. She thought of her brother, 19 years old, trying to act older than he was, always trying to protect her, even when he needed protecting more. And she thought of the man behind the corner office door, Lucas Hartley. She had worked for him for 3 years. Sat outside his office 5 days a week, memorized his schedule, knew how he liked his coffee, how he signed his name, but not once had he asked her how she was doing. Not once had he used her first name. Not once had he smiled. At 10:03 p.m., Olivia stood up slowly. She picked up her purse, her coat, her phone. She walked to the elevator and pressed the down button. But nothing happened. The screen flickered, then went black. She waited. Still nothing. The power had not gone out. The emergency lights were still on. But the elevator had stopped. She turned around, looked down the hallway. The stairs were at the far end, 58 floors. She sighed, then she started walking. The stairwell was cold. Olivia gripped the metal railing as she moved slowly down each flight. Her boots clicked against the concrete steps. The sound echoed upward, hollow and sharp. She was only on floor 53. Her breath had already turned shallow. Each landing felt longer than the last. She paused for a moment, leaned against the wall, rubbed her forehead with the back of her hand. Her skin felt too warm. Her thoughts drifted. To home, to her mother, to the dinner she had not cooked. The apartment was on the west side, 2-bedroom, second floor, small kitchen, no elevator. It used to feel cozy. These days, it just felt tired. The heater clicked at odd intervals. The bathroom tiles had cracked last spring and never got fixed. The fridge leaked a little water that pooled near the door. Still, it was home. And it was hers to protect. She paid the rent, the gas, the internet, the pills for memory support, the groceries. Ethan helped when he could. He worked weekends at a hardware store, but school kept him busy. He had dreams of becoming a physical therapist. Olivia had promised she would help him finish. It was the only promise she had made that still gave her strength. When she finally reached the lobby, her legs were trembling. The security guard had already gone. Snow had crept inside through the gaps near the doors. It formed a thin, dirty slush on the tile floor. She walked carefully to the glass exit and pushed it open. The cold wind slapped her face. She wrapped her coat tighter, pulled her scarf higher, and walked toward the bus stop, 2 blocks down. Her car had died 2 weeks ago. She could not afford the repairs, so she walked. And when she could not walk, she waited for the bus. And when it did not come, she took a cab and hoped the fare would not overdraft her card. At home, the living room was dark. Only the hallway light was on. She stepped inside and locked the door quietly. From the kitchen, she heard a pan clatter, then her mother's voice. "Who is there?" Olivia exhaled. "It is me, Mom." Margaret Bennett appeared in the doorway. Her graying hair was pulled back with a worn pink clip. She wore a light sweater over pajamas and oven mitts on both hands. "There you are," Margaret said, her voice unsure. I thought I made turkey. There is no turkey." "Mom?" Margaret looked down at her hands. "I must have imagined it." Olivia nodded softly. "It is okay. Let me help you to bed." Her mother resisted at first, mumbling about guests, about cranberry sauce. Then, slowly, she allowed Olivia to guide her down the hall to her room. The bed was already turned down. There was a framed photo on the nightstand. Two children sitting on a piano bench, Olivia and Ethan, smiling, their mother behind them, hands on their shoulders. Margaret looked at the photo. She touched it gently. "Who are they?" Olivia answered without hesitation. "Good people. People who love you." Later, Olivia stood in the kitchen. She poured a glass of water and drank slowly. Then she leaned on the counter, staring at the floor. There were bills on the table, a list of prescription refills, a voicemail from her landlord she had not checked. The invisible load. It was not just the money, or the time. It was the weight of being the strong one. Always. Quietly. She did not resent her mother, or her brother, or the long hours at work, but sometimes she missed herself. She missed playing music, reading books without falling asleep after 2 pages, laughing without guilt. She missed not being tired. In the shared bedroom, Ethan sat at his desk, typing a paper. He heard Olivia come in. He turned around. "Hey, I saved you dinner. You want me to heat it?" She shook her head. "Later. Maybe." He stood up, walked over, looked at her face closely. "You okay?" "I'm fine. You sure?" She nodded, but her eyes said otherwise. He hugged her. It was brief, but it was real. "You do not have to carry all of this," he whispered. She did not answer, because she did not know how to stop. That night, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet, except for the occasional hum from the neighbor's TV through the wall. She replayed the moment from earlier. Lucas Hartley standing in the hallway, looking at her. Not with interest, not with concern, just observing. For a second, she thought he might say something more, but he never did. And maybe that was worse than silence. She remembered the first time she walked into his office, 3 years ago. She wore a gray blouse and flat shoes. He looked up, asked 2 questions, then pointed to the desk outside his door. That was it. Since then, they had worked together every day. He was brilliant, strategic, cold, and for reasons she could not explain, she admired him, even when he was distant, even when he forgot she was human. There was something in him, something broken, and she knew that look because she had seen it in the mirror. By morning, the snow had stopped. A dull gray sky stretched across the skyline. Olivia rose quietly, made coffee, and left the house before sunrise. She walked 2 blocks to the train, stood in the cold with other early workers. She looked up at the buildings, glass, steel, soaring structures, full of quiet pain. And she wondered, what would it take for someone like Lucas Hartley to feel anything again? The next morning, Lucas Hartley arrived at the office before anyone else. He always did. The security system clicked as he passed through the main entrance. His leather shoes echoed on the marble floor. The silence was comforting, predictable, like the numbers he worked with. He pressed the elevator button. The steel doors opened. He stepped in alone. Floor 58 lit up. No sound, just the soft hum of motion. Lucas looked at his reflection in the mirrored walls. Pressed suit, clean shave, dark tie, efficient, composed, but the eyes looking back at him held no spark, no warmth, just a distance. In his office, he removed his coat, placed it on the stand, and opened the blinds. Chicago lay beneath him, bathed in a gray, winter light. He stood still, hands in his pockets, watching. It had been 5 years since that phone call, since her name showed up on the screen and he answered with a laugh. "Are you bringing coffee? Or do I need to rescue both of us again?" He could still hear her laugh, her voice, that teasing tone. That was the last time he heard it. Rachel had died on a Tuesday. She was on Lakeshore Drive, driving back from a client meeting. A delivery truck skidded on black ice and veered into her lane. The police report called it unavoidable. She was 29. They were supposed to move into their new apartment the following weekend. The boxes were already packed. Lucas had picked out the paint colors himself. She hated 2 of them. He would have changed them all if she had asked. But she never got the chance. After the funeral, he returned to work in 3 days. Everyone told him to take more time. His father called. Once, his business partner offered to handle things for a week. Lucas said no. He said he needed structure, but the truth was simpler. He was afraid of stillness, of the sound of her absence. He buried himself in meetings, expansion plans, forecasts. He poured himself into the company like it could replace what he had lost. And for a while, it worked. He had always been good with numbers. They made sense. They behaved. They did not leave. People were different. People broke things, or died, or drifted away. So he stopped letting people get close. He removed himself from the emotional parts of life. Smiles became rare. Small talk disappeared. Relationships thinned until there was only work. And the illusion of control. At 9:15 p.m., he opened the financial report Olivia had placed on his desk the night before. The numbers were perfect. As always, he noticed her handwriting in the margin. Small, neat, efficient. He stared at it for a long moment, then closed the file. He had barely looked at her face in 3 years. But last night, in the hallway, something shifted. There was a tremor in her shoulders, a weariness in the way she stood. He should have said something. He had wanted to, but the words did not come. He leaned back in his chair, let his eyes close. The memory returned, like snow falling in reverse. The apartment on North Halsted, Rachel in the kitchen, humming an old Motown song. The scent of cinnamon rolls in the oven. She had flour on her nose. She was talking about Christmas lights. He had barely been listening. He had a meeting that afternoon. He was reading something on his phone. She laughed at him, called him boring. He looked up and smiled and thought, this is forever. It was not. Lucas opened his eyes, stared at the ceiling. He had built Keller and Price Capital from nothing. He had turned one investment into $200 million in under 4 years. But none of it had made him feel alive again. There were no pictures on his desk, no plants, no books, just numbers, reports, schedules, and a growing sense that something inside him had gone quiet for too long. At noon, he stepped out of his office. The staff looked up in surprise. He rarely walked the floor. He nodded politely, but said nothing. He paused near Olivia's desk. She was not there. The chair was empty, her computer off. For a brief moment, something uneasy stirred in his chest. She was always there. Back in his office, he picked up the phone, typed her extension. It rang 3 times, then voicemail. He ended the call. He told himself it did not matter. She was likely at lunch or in a meeting, but part of him knew better. She had looked pale the night before, too thin, too tired, and now gone. He walked to the window. The city stretched endlessly before him. Cars, people, buildings, lives being lived. He remembered something Rachel once told him. If you only live in the numbers, you will forget how it feels to breathe. He had dismissed it then, thought it was poetic nonsense, but now, 5 years later, he was not sure he even remembered what breathing really felt like. The hallway was dim. Only the emergency lights glowed along the baseboards. The power had flickered twice, then failed. A quiet hum from backup systems filled the air. Everything else had gone still. Olivia Bennett held the railing with one hand. Her vision blurred. She had only made it to floor 42. The metal beneath her fingers felt warm and cold all at once. Her legs no longer moved as she told them to. The ache in her back had turned into a deep throb behind her ribs. She leaned against the wall, breathed in slowly, counted. 1, 2, 3. The steps kept slipping away beneath her. Her knees shook, and then there was no more strength left. Lucas Hartley was halfway down the stairwell. He had left the office moments after trying Olivia's extension again. Still no answer. Something kept tugging at him. A quiet tension in the chest. Unfamiliar. And growing. He told himself he was being irrational. She was fine, except she was not. On the 42nd floor landing, he stopped. A small shape lay on the cold cement. Her purse had spilled beside her. Folders and papers scattered like feathers across the wet floor. He blinked, froze. It took him a full breath to understand what he was seeing. Then he moved, fast. He knelt beside her. She was curled slightly, one hand still gripping the edge of the step, her coat soaked from melted snow, her cheek pale against the concrete. Olivia. He said her name. The first time aloud, it felt unfamiliar on his tongue, but it was the only word that mattered. She did not answer. He checked her pulse. It was faint, but steady. Her skin was ice cold. He pulled off his coat and wrapped it around her. Her hair, loosened from the clip, stuck to her damp face. For the first time in 5 years, Lucas felt his hands shake. He took out his phone. No signal. The stairwell was cut off. He looked up, one flight above. There was a maintenance exit on 43. He stood, scooped her into his arms. She felt far too light. Her head rested against his chest. Barely moving, step by step, he carried her upward. His shoes slid slightly on the wet stair. He tightened his grip, refused to let her fall. On the 43rd floor, the door pushed open. He emerged into a dark hallway. Breathing hard, he saw a red light blinking on the wall. Emergency call box. He pressed the button. A voice crackled through the static. "This is building security. Please state your emergency." Lucas spoke clearly, quickly. "Employee unconscious. I need medical assistance. Female, late 20s. Location floor, 43 South Wing stairwell access. Copy. Paramedics on the way." He ended the call, looked down. Olivia was still not awake. Her hand lay limp against his chest. Her face, under the emergency light, looked translucent, so fragile. Minutes passed. He sat on the bench near the exit, still holding her. He was not sure why. but he could not let go. Her breathing remained shallow. There was something in the silence that terrified him. Not the darkness, not the building, not the cold, but this helplessness. The elevator across the hall dinged. Paramedics rushed out with a stretcher. Lucas stood, gave a quick summary, stepped back as they checked her vitals. One of them turned to him. "Are you family?" "No, I am." He hesitated. "I am her boss." The word sounded empty. The medic nodded. "She is dehydrated. Very low blood sugar. Likely exhaustion." They lifted her gently onto the stretcher. As they strapped her in, her hand twitched. Lucas reached for it, held it for just a second, then let go. In the ambulance, he sat beside her. The city lights passed outside the window. The medic checked her pulse again. "She is going to be okay," he said. Lucas nodded, but his jaw remained tight. His mind raced. Meetings, reports, board reviews, all meaningless. He looked down at her again, this woman who had carried so much and never once asked for anything in return. He remembered her desk, how neat it always was, the framed photo near her monitor. He had never really looked at it. Now he could see it clearly in his mind. A younger Olivia, standing beside a boy, both smiling. That photo had been there for years. He had never asked who the boy was, or why the photo never changed. He reached out, brushed a piece of hair from her forehead. "Hold on," he whispered. The lights outside flashed red and white against the windshield. The siren began to fade. Chicago General came into view. The ambulance slowed. Lucas closed his eyes, and in the quiet between heartbeats, he realized something had just broken open inside him. The waiting room at Chicago General was quiet. Overhead, lights buzzed softly. The tile floor smelled of cleaning solution and old coffee. Chairs lined the wall, filled with the silent weight of people waiting. Lucas sat alone in the corner. His coat was folded over the armrest. His sleeves were still damp. His hair, once precise, now sat uneven across his forehead. He did not fix it. He barely noticed. He glanced at his phone. No messages, no missed calls. He had canceled the day's meetings, without warning. He told an assistant from another team, someone temporarily helping, to reschedule the board review. That was 3 hours ago. No one questioned it. No one asked why. He leaned back against the wall, closed his eyes. He could still feel her weight in his arms, could still hear the sound of her breath, soft and uneven. Her name came back to him again. Olivia. A nurse approached quietly. "Mr. Hartley." Lucas stood up. "She is stable," the nurse said. "Still resting. The doctor will speak with you soon." Lucas nodded once. The nurse paused. "Her family has arrived." Lucas turned. 2 figures stood just outside the hallway entrance. A young man in a green hoodie, and a woman with tired eyes, holding a worn handbag against her chest. They looked uncertain. Lucas walked toward them. The young man stepped forward. "Are you the one who called us?" "Yes," Lucas said. "My name is Lucas Hartley." "I am Ethan," the man said. "Olivia is my sister. This is our mom, Margaret." Lucas extended his hand. Margaret hesitated, then reached out. Her hand was cool and firm. She met his eyes for only a second. "You brought her here?" "Yes." She collapsed in the stairwell. "She going to be all right?" "The doctors believe so. Exhaustion, low blood sugar, dehydration." Margaret sighed. "She works too much, always has." Ethan looked past Lucas, down the hallway. "Can we see her?" "Just a few minutes," the nurse said gently. They moved to the seating area. Margaret sat down slowly. Ethan stood beside her, arms folded, foot tapping quietly. Lucas remained near the edge of the room. Three people, tied together by one woman. Margaret turned to him after a long pause. "You are the man she works for. I am the one from the glass office, the one who never smiles." Ethan shifted beside her. "Mom, it is all right," Lucas said. His voice was steady. "She is right." Margaret studied him carefully. "She talks about you sometimes." Lucas looked up. "I did not know that." "Not often. But once in a while, she said you were smart, but lonely." Lucas said nothing. "She used to hum when she came home. She does not hum anymore." The hallway light blinked twice. A nurse returned. "You can see her now. Room 214. Margaret stood. Ethan helped her steady her footing. "Will you come with us?" Margaret asked Lucas. He looked surprised. "I do not want to intrude. You brought her here. That means something." He nodded, followed them down the hall. The hallway was painted pale blue, the kind of color meant to be soft, but always felt too clean, too controlled. They stopped at room 214. Olivia lay in bed. A soft blanket covered her frame. Her eyes were closed. Her skin was pale. A line from the IV ran to her arm. A monitor beeped in slow, steady rhythm. Ethan moved first, sat at the bedside, took her hand. "Hey, Liv," he whispered. Margaret stood near the window. She opened her handbag, pulled out a folded piece of sheet music. The edges were torn. The ink faded. "I kept this for her," she said. "She learned it when she was 10. Used to play it for me when I had headaches." She placed the paper on the nightstand. Lucas stood near the door. He had never seen Olivia like this. Not focused, not sharp. Just still, real. Her eyes opened slowly. She blinked, adjusted to the light. Then she saw them. First Ethan, then her mother, then Lucas. She looked confused. "Mr. Hartley, I am here," he said. "You are here. Yes, you did not have to. You collapsed." She tried to sit up. He stepped forward. "Do not move. Just rest." She winced. "The board meeting. I missed it. It does not matter. The report can wait." Her lips trembled. "I am sorry." "Stop saying that." He sat in the chair beside her. "You do not need to be sorry for taking care of yourself." Margaret stepped closer. "You scared us," she said gently. Olivia looked away. "I did not mean to." "You always mean to be strong," Ethan said. "But that does not mean you have to carry everything." Olivia nodded slowly. Lucas looked at her hands, still pale, still shaking slightly. "You should not have to prove your value by how much you endure." She looked at him, her eyes wet now. "I thought if I made myself essential, no one could let me go." "You should not have to live like that," Lucas said. The room fell quiet. The only sound was the soft beeping from the monitor. Outside the window, snow began to fall again, small flakes, silent. Ethan squeezed her hand. Margaret pulled the chair closer. Lucas stood. "I can give you space." "No," Olivia said. Her voice was soft, tired, but sure. "Please stay." And he did. Lucas sat in the hospital cafeteria, hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee he did not drink. He stared at the table. The surface was scratched and stained, coffee rings, faint pen marks, the signs of 1,000 people who had waited here before him, people with worry in their hearts, people hoping for answers, people afraid. He was one of them now. His world had always moved in numbers, charts, margins, projections. He had been proud of that, but now he felt untethered. Earlier that morning, a doctor had pulled him aside. "Mr. Hartley," she said, "Olivia is stable, but her body is worn down. She has not been eating properly. Her stress levels are dangerously high. She needs more than rest. She needs space to recover." Lucas nodded, but inside, something twisted. He had seen the signs. He had ignored them. He was good at ignoring what made him uncomfortable. Margaret sat across from him now, her hands folded. She sipped tea slowly, her movements quiet and gentle. "Do you know how long she has worked like this?" she asked. Lucas looked up. "She came to us 2 years ago." "I never asked about her life outside work." Margaret nodded. Her eyes never left his. "She never said it, but I could see it in her. She was always tired, always trying to prove something." Lucas shifted. "I thought I was being fair. I thought I gave her opportunity." "You gave her a chance, yes. But did you ever give her kindness?" The question struck deeper than he expected. He looked toward the hallway. Olivia was resting now, her brother beside her, still holding her hand. Lucas remembered how she had looked when she arrived. Sharp, organized, always prepared. But what had it cost her? And why had he never asked back at the office? He had always prided himself on efficiency. He hired based on performance. He measured value in output. He did not believe in excuses. But now, he wondered, how many people sat at desks, working through migraines? How many missed dinners? How many missed entire seasons of their lives? Because they believed they had to. Because no one told them they could stop. Because people like him rewarded silence. He thought of Olivia again, of how she had smiled politely in meetings, of how she always had his calendar memorized, of how he knew her coffee order, but not her favorite book. He knew her report style, but not her laugh. He knew her performance, but not her pain. It shamed him, deeply. The elevator dinged in his memory. A day 3 months ago. She had stepped in, eyes hollow. She had said she was fine. He had nodded, then moved on. It came back to him now, like thunder. How many times had she been invisible? "She wanted to do a good job," Margaret said softly. Lucas leaned back. "I did not deserve her loyalty." "Maybe not, but you showed up when it mattered." "I should have shown up sooner." Margaret gave him a long look. "People do not always change when they should, but when they do, it matters." Lucas looked down at his hands. "I do not know if I can change. I do not know if I know how. You can. If you start by seeing people, really seeing them." Later that day, Lucas stepped outside. Snow had stopped. The sidewalk shimmered in afternoon sun. He walked past the newsstand near the hospital parking lot. A young man was stacking newspapers. Lucas paused. The headline was about market recovery. He stared at it for a while. Then he turned and walked back inside. He stopped at the nurse's station. "Is Olivia Bennett allowed visitors?" "Immediate family only." "I understand." He hesitated. "Could you give her this?" He placed a folded note on the counter. It was simple. 2 lines. "You matter more than you think. When you are ready, I would like to listen." Signed, Lucas. 3 weeks passed. The air in Chicago softened. The bitter winds lost their bite. Gray skies gave way to clear mornings, and on one of those mornings, Olivia Bennett stepped back into the lobby of Keller and Price Capital. She held a paper cup of tea. Her coat was neatly pressed. Her walk was steady, but her eyes still held shadows. Lucas watched her from the mezzanine. He did not plan to. He just happened to be there. She crossed the marble floor slowly, not like before, not rushed, not already thinking of 10 things ahead. He saw the way the security guard smiled at her. She nodded in return, a little awkward, a little grateful. She was back, but something had changed. In her new office on the 21st floor, the space smelled of fresh paint and pine wood. A window overlooked the Chicago River. The walls were calm gray. A soft chair sat near the window. There was a small vase of daffodils on her desk. Someone had remembered she liked yellow. She touched one petal gently, then opened her laptop. A knock on the door came at 10:15. Lucas stood there, hands in his coat pockets. "Morning," he said. Olivia nodded. "Good morning." They stood in silence for a moment. Lucas looked around the office. "I hope the window helps." She smiled faintly. "It does." He stepped inside slowly, sat in the chair across from her. "I read the report draft you sent last night. And it was excellent. Of course it was." Olivia looked down. "I still feel behind." "You are not," Lucas said softly. "You are exactly where you need to be." They sat like that for a minute, neither trying to fix anything, just sharing space. Then Olivia broke the silence. "My mother called this morning. She remembered it was Tuesday, first time in weeks." Lucas leaned forward slightly. "That is good." Olivia nodded. "Ethan is doing better too. He is painting again." Lucas looked at her. "You look different." "I feel different." "In a good way. In a real way." The hum of the office was softer here. The 21st floor was quieter than the executive level. She had a view, but not the pressure. Her calendar had space. Her inbox had boundaries. For the first time, Olivia had control. Lucas stood to leave. At the door, he paused. "There is something I have been working on." "What is it?" He hesitated. "It is not ready yet, but when it is, I would like your thoughts." "Of course," she said. As he walked away, Olivia watched his reflection in the glass. He moved differently now. Less urgency, more intention. That afternoon, she visited the staff lounge. It had been redesigned. There was a table of fresh fruit, real chairs, not plastic. A corkboard, covered with thank you notes and birthday cards. She smiled. A new poster read, "You are not your output. You are a person first." She stood there for a while. Then she wrote a small card and pinned it to the board. "Thank you. Whoever brought the yellow flowers." When she returned to her desk, there was a note under her keyboard. "Welcome back. The flowers were from facilities, but I think they suit you." No signature, but she knew. She smiled. That evening, Olivia walked to the river before heading home. The wind tugged gently at her scarf. Streetlights came on one by one. The city looked the same, but felt new. She stood by the railing and looked down at the water. Then she closed her eyes and breathed. The snow returned to Chicago on a Sunday morning. It was the soft kind, gentle, silent, covering the sidewalks like a clean page. Lucas Hartley stood at the window of his apartment, a steaming mug of tea in his hands. He did not drink coffee anymore. Olivia had switched him. Her reasoning. Tea makes space for silence. He found she was right. Across the street, the park was empty, except for one figure. A man sitting at the old public piano under the shelter. The city had placed it there last summer. Few used it once the weather turned. But now, someone sat playing. Slow, careful, notes drifting through the air like snowflakes. Lucas watched for a long time. Then he put on his coat. He crossed the street slowly. The snow crunched beneath his shoes. The pianist was older, maybe 70, a wool scarf wrapped around his shoulders. fingers thin and elegant. He nodded as Lucas approached. "You play?" the man asked. "Not since I was a child." "Then today is a good day to remember." The man stood, gestured toward the bench. Lucas hesitated, then sat. His hands hovered over the keys. They looked different now. Older, wiser, a little less sure. He pressed one key, then another, then a simple tune emerged, one his mother used to hum while cooking. He did not know how long he played. The notes were uneven at first, but his hands remembered, not the perfection, just the feeling. When he stopped, the older man was gone, but someone else stood nearby, Olivia. She wore a soft gray coat and warm boots, her eyes bright. "You play beautifully," she said. Lucas looked down at the keys. "I forgot I could." They walked together across the park, side by side. No rush, no plans, just snow and silence. They stopped near the frozen fountain. Olivia looked at the sculptures, half buried in snow. "When I was a girl," she said, "I thought fountains froze in place because they were sad." Lucas smiled. "Why sad?" "Because they gave and gave until they had nothing left." He looked at her. "Do you still think that—" She shook her head. "I think they are resting now, waiting for spring." Lucas nodded. "I have been thinking about my mother lately." Olivia stayed quiet. "I never told anyone much about her. She loved music. She worked 2 jobs. She used to say, 'You do not need to be loud to change a room, just steady.' She sounds like someone worth remembering." She was. They sat on a bench, watching the snow. Lucas spoke again. "I failed her once. After she passed, I shut everything down. Feelings, friends, everything. I thought silence meant strength. And now I think strength means showing up, even when you are afraid." Olivia nodded. "I used to think the same, that if I was essential enough, I would be safe, that if I worked hard enough, no one could take anything away." She looked at her gloves. "But I lost myself doing that." Lucas reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small photo. It showed a boy at a piano, his mother behind him, smiling. "I kept this in my wallet for years. I forgot it was there." Olivia touched the corner of the photo, gently. "She would be proud of you." Lucas shook his head. "Not yet, but maybe on the way." They walked toward the street again. Traffic moved slowly through the snow. "I have been thinking of hosting something," Lucas said. "A gathering. For staff. Not about work, about people. Like a retreat. More like a beginning." "A different way to build things," Olivia smiled. "I would like that." Back at his apartment, Lucas placed the photo in a frame. He set it on a small shelf near the piano he had bought last week. It was not fancy, but it sounded warm. That night, he played again. Not to impress, not to escape, but to remember. Somewhere in the city, snow kept falling. But spring was coming. He could feel it now, in the way people looked each other in the eye, in the way the office lights dimmed earlier, in the way Olivia laughed more often, in the way his hands no longer trembled at stillness. The office felt different now, not louder, not brighter, just human. People spoke in the elevators, shared real stories at lunch, brought in muffins and photos and tiny reminders of the life outside spreadsheets. Lucas Hartley saw it happen, slowly, quietly. It started with small things. The wellness room was no longer used as a storage closet. Instead, it had soft lighting and books on grief and resilience. A new intern designed a pause board in the break room. notes pinned up like tiny prayers. Today I made it through. My son got accepted to college. I was kind to myself. People read them, then added their own. Lucas met weekly with the operations team, not in the big boardroom, but in the staff lounge, over coffee and toast. He asked, "How are we doing?" and waited for real answers, not just numbers. One Friday, a maintenance worker named Glenn shared that his wife was starting chemo. He had kept it private for months. Lucas nodded and said, "Take the time you need. Your job will wait for you." There were tears in Glenn's eyes. It was the first time someone in charge had said that to him. The human resources team rewrote the handbook. Pages removed, language softened, new sections added: what to do when life gets hard, how to talk to your manager if you are overwhelmed. Your value is not your output. One clause stood out. If you are carrying something heavy, you are allowed to put it down. Olivia Bennett watched all of this unfold. From her desk near the window, with her vase of daffodils, her role had changed. Not just in title, she was no longer behind the curtain. She was part of the light. One afternoon, she met with Lucas in his office. He had added a rug. A small plant sat by the window. There was even a photo of a boy playing piano. They sat across from each other. "I want to propose something," Olivia said. Lucas raised an eyebrow. "Go on." "A mentoring program. Not formal, just real people helping real people, especially the ones who never speak up." Lucas leaned back. "I like that." She continued, "We could start small. Pair new hires with senior staff. Build trust before projects. Build connection before pressure." Lucas smiled. "You always find the quiet places where things matter most." Word spread beyond the building. Other firms noticed the shift, not just in culture, in performance. People stayed longer. Ideas flowed faster. Clients commented on the tone of emails, the calm in meetings, the clarity. It was as if the whole company had exhaled. Lucas received a letter one morning. Typed, formal, but the words carried weight. It was from a young analyst named Drew. He wrote, "Before last year, I thought I had to break myself to succeed. I saw stress as a badge, exhaustion as proof. But then I saw something different here. I saw people be strong and gentle. I saw you show up when it was not expected. Thank you for making space for people like me to breathe." Lucas kept that letter, framed it next to the piano photo. He looked at it every Monday. To remember why. Olivia walked through the building one Tuesday morning. She stopped by the pantry. A new hire asked for help with the coffee machine. She smiled. She used to be that person. Too tired to ask, too scared to speak. Now, she spoke easily. There was peace in her voice, not because things were perfect, but because she was not pretending anymore. That afternoon, Lucas called for a full company town hall. Everyone gathered in the big atrium. No suits, no hierarchy, just people. Lucas stood at the front. He wore no tie. He took a breath. Some of you know this already. Others might be hearing it for the first time. But this company is changing, not because we want to look better, but because we want to be better. He paused. We are not machines. We are not robots chasing numbers. We are people, with lives, with grief, with hope. He looked across the room. I once believed success meant never stopping, never bending, never breaking. A silence held the room. But I was wrong. A few heads nodded. I broke once, and someone found me before I could fall too far. That changed me. And now, I want this place to be the kind of place where we catch each other. Applause followed, not loud, not rehearsed, just honest. After the meeting, a quiet employee named Mia from IT approached Olivia. "I was going to quit," she said. Olivia looked surprised. "Why, I thought no one noticed. I existed. And now I feel seen." In his office, Lucas turned off his computer. He watched the city lights. The building was the same, but the company had changed. Because the people had changed. Because he had changed. He picked up the small plant near the window, checked the soil, still healthy, still growing, like everything else. The summer returned, quiet and full. Chicago parks bloomed with color. Sidewalk cafes reopened. Windows glowed longer each evening. In one of those small cafes near the river, Olivia Bennett stirred honey into her tea. Across from her, Lucas Hartley watched the steam rise. Neither of them had spoken in a few minutes. Not out of silence, out of peace. A year had passed since the hospital. 12 months of change, of rebuilding, of choosing slower mornings and longer lunches. Lucas had kept his promise. No more midnight emails. No more missed birthdays. No more making pain invisible. He now left the office before sundown. He walked more, read more. He talked to strangers sometimes, asked questions he never used to ask. Olivia smiled across the table. "You are different," she said. Lucas shrugged slightly. "So are you." She nodded. "I think I like myself better now." "Me too." They both laughed quietly. It was a soft sound, the kind people make when they are whole. That afternoon, Lucas visited the nursing home where his old music teacher lived. Mr. Ellison had taught him piano when he was a child. The man now had tremors in his hands. But he still remembered every note. "You came back, Mr. Ellison said. "I wanted to say thank you." Lucas replied, "You already did." You kept playing. They sat in silence for a while. Then Lucas played just one song, the same one from the park. Mr. Ellison closed his eyes and tapped his foot to the rhythm. Elsewhere, Olivia stood in front of a classroom. Not a corporate room, a real classroom. She had started teaching part-time at a community college, work-life balance, emotional intelligence, leadership without fear. Some of her students were young, some were older. All of them listened when she spoke, because she did not speak from theory. She spoke from survival, from rebuilding, from hope. At Keller and Price, the culture had settled into something strong. New employees were onboarded with two things: a folder full of policies and a handwritten letter from Lucas. It read, "We are building more than a company. We are building something that lasts, not just profits, but people. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. That is how we grow." One evening, Olivia visited her mother's house. Margaret was in the kitchen, chopping apples for pie. Ethan, her brother, sat at the counter with a sketchpad. The house smelled like cinnamon and safety. Lucas called, Margaret said, handing Olivia a peeled apple slice. "Oh, he asked if we wanted to come over for dinner next weekend." "Did he say why?" Margaret smiled. "He said no reason, just family, later that week." Lucas hosted that dinner. His apartment felt lived in now. Plants in the corners, books on the shelves, the piano in the center. Hope was the name of the first plant he ever bought. It had grown across the bookshelf, reaching toward the window. As guests arrived, Lucas moved through the kitchen. He wore an apron. He burned the garlic bread slightly. No one cared. They ate on the patio. The sun dipped low. Lights twinkled along the railing. Ethan told stories. Margaret shared recipes. Olivia laughed so hard at one point, she nearly spilled her wine. Lucas watched all of it. He said little, but his face said everything. Later, after everyone left, He stood alone on the balcony. The city stretched out in lights. He thought about his mother, about the silence he used to live inside, about the day Olivia collapsed, and how that changed everything. Olivia joined him outside. Her voice was soft. "Do you ever miss who you used to be?" Lucas shook his head. "No, but I do carry him with me. I remember how tired he was, how afraid." He looked at her. "How about you?" "I miss how certain I used to feel, but not the weight I carried." She paused. "I thought I had to hold everything together. You do not." She leaned into him. "I know that now." They watched the sky. It was quiet, no music, no speech, just breath, just presence, and that was enough. Weeks later, Keller and Price received an award, not for revenue, for culture. Lucas accepted it on behalf of the team. His speech was short. "To everyone here, to everyone who ever thought they had to disappear in order to succeed, you do not. You matter more than you know, and this company only works when you do too." The applause was warm, not because of the words, but because people believed them. Back in the office, Olivia found a note on her desk. From a junior analyst, it read, "I stayed because of you." She folded the note and kept it in her wallet. She would need it someday, for the hard days, for the days she forgot. In a quiet morning, months later, Lucas walked into the piano room. He opened the windows. Light spilled across the floor. He sat down, played one note, then another, then something new, something unfinished, something full of life. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing is not pain, it is silence. We push through long days. We take care of others. We keep going, because we think we must. But the body remembers. And one day, it stops us. Just like Olivia. This story reminds us that success is not how much we do. It is how much we care. About others and about ourselves. Lucas thought he had everything, but he had no one to share it with. Only when he chose to pay attention and to listen did his life begin to change. We are never too old to change. We are never too far gone to care. Maybe you are like Lucas, strong but tired, or like Olivia, kind but forgotten. Either way. The message is clear. You matter. Your heart matters, and sometimes all it takes to begin again is someone who truly sees you. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video. Share it with someone who may need a little hope today. And if you want to hear more stories like this, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means more than you know. Together, we can keep spreading kindness, one story at a time.